What do you expect coming into this draft?
I still expect from Fnatic to prioritize Lance over some other roamers, unlike other teams, just because Netitoleta feels so comfortable on him. For Dynasty, like you said, Glaive is a huge pick for PT Lamb, and for Mowgli, he still got the Grace, he still got the Catherine, Lyra, Lance. He's a diverse player. He can pick up whatever he needs.
Well, you mentioned that Fnatic love that Lance is going to be immediately banned by Dynasty. They're not having any of those comfort picks coming through.
Yeah, and again, this is now going to guarantee that either the Catherine or the Grace will be available for Mowgli. He loves both of those heroes. He loves Lyra as well, so he's going to be definitely getting one of those comfort picks to come through. I'm going to be curious to see if, for PT Lamb, if they are going to go for one of these melee laners, because that's what we saw from them so often last season, but they're not quite the same level of focus this season around on Update 2.8.
This is the first time we get to see that determines what Dynasty likes to pick over other things. Lyra over Catherine, that's something you wouldn't see with other teams, but Dynasty do go for it, and this could be about the strategy they're trying to pull off against Fnatic. Lyra is great at sieging, she's great at sustaining. If they pick a comp where they can constantly go up to lane, get turret damage, they can play off of it.
Celeste going to be the counter lock in here for Fnatic, which means Catherine could well end up getting banned here. Blackfeather going to be the third ban. That's something that we're starting to see pretty much every time now.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to run a Celeste, you have to make sure your opponents can't have Blackfeather.
I think that's a very smart draft from Fnatic, because you don't have to pick the Catherine there, since Dynasty would still have to ban it if they don't want you to get it, in which case you could get another priority pick such as Cruel. And if they don't ban Catherine, you get Celeste and Catherine, such a strong comp.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Celeste is definitely a solid pick, especially when you can follow up with that Blackfeather ban. We were talking earlier about how good Blackfeather is into that Celeste. Sorry. So Cruel is going to be the decision, which means Catherine is still open.
I mean, Celeste Cruel is like another extremely strong composition, just because Celeste provides the range, Cruel provides the peeling. He sits in the bush when the enemy team is trying to engage, and when the enemy engages, he goes on the target, he puts down his weakness stacks, and goes from there on. Glaive is an interesting choice.
I actually really like this lock-in here, because think about the fact that they can't ban anything else. They're not going to pick up the Catherine unless they want a CP Lyra or something crazy like that. So why not grab yourself yet another priority pick? It's a way of putting your putting basically the first pick in most drafts all the way to the last pick, and there's nothing that Dynasty can do about it.
Yeah, the only downside to doing it is now you don't get the option to counter what Dynasty is going to come up with, but they are going to be confident in their own composition. This is one of the things that we talk about every so often is, playing to counter your opponent versus playing to your strengths. Fnatic has chosen to just play to their strengths, and we don't care what you're going to run. This is what we're comfortable with. This is what we are confident can win.
I mean, the last thing they can do is still put Glaive in the roam position and get a jungler. Glaive roam versus Celeste works pretty good, because if you afterburn into a core collapse, it's almost the same chaining effect of the Catherine Celeste. But I don't really expect that it would be a lot better for them to go for the Catherine. Samuel Vox, this is what I mentioned. Dynasty are trying to go for a siege turret heavy comp where they can go up to lane, constantly poke at the Celeste, constantly sustain with the Lyra until they get a kill or get the turret or get a huge advantage somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be an interesting one, because it feels like both of these compositions are very strong in their own right, but two very different styles of gameplay coming out from these teams. So how are we expecting this game to play out? Because I feel like the goals of these two teams are very dramatically different.
I mean, Dynasty have a clear advantage up until level 8 for Celeste. If they go up to lane constantly and poke at her, try to get a lot of turret damage, they can get an early on advantage. But if Celeste gets to her level 8, Fnatic are going to be able to fight back. And as the time goes on and Catherine scales, their composition will get stronger.
Yeah, the early game is definitely going to be in Dynasty's favor, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because obviously early on, normally if you look at a Celeste Glaive, you think, okay, that's the early advantage there, but for that to work out, they have to make those rotations up into the lane and make those ganks happen. But Dynasty, if they just send the Samuel up there and have their three-man's team up in the lane as well, that all of a sudden becomes extremely difficult, and now puts Glaive in a vulnerable position as well when he tries to go in. So it kind of counters what the Glaive is going to want to do early on, but once you get to the mid to late game, that's when things are going to get really interesting. The early game of this one is probably going to end up actually being surprisingly passive for this update.
Yeah, I mean, that's to some extent, every time I see a Celeste, I start to expect that whoever is on the Celeste team wants to play super passive in the early game, wants to get to that late game Celeste style. And if you're playing passive, then it's much more difficult for your opponent to make.
And we saw this strategy yesterday where a glaive composition gets picked up to counter the aggression coming from a sieging composition. Because if glaive comes for a gank and he gets a kill, that denies the entire siege.
All right, well, we've got to get on into this one. It's time for game one of our second series. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know who you're supporting. But it's time to pass it once again to Dowsey and the Source for game number one.
Dynasty versus Fnatic here on the Halcyon Fold. Fnatic able to upset Mouse and now looking to try and make their way over to the finals to join SK to become Week 1's champions. But first they have to go through Dynasty here, and Dynasty, a team here, Source, that always excites me. What also excites me is level 1 fights. Let's go, baby. Rickameza, he's in a lot of trouble. Can he survive? No, I don't think he can. Looking for a kill onto Net. The fight ongoing. It's on all fronts. Riku's still alive. He's almost killed Rickameza. In fact, never mind. That is first blood going over to Net. Mowgli says, we need to get one of our own. Net's got one. I want one. And he takes down Palmatoro as well. So 1-for-1 trades to start off this game. And I think that should be it as far as skirmishing is concerned, though. Dynasty looking to try and steal away this front treant. TechnoJJ doesn't want to allow it to happen, but it is going to go over to PTM nonetheless.
For a minute there, I thought Dynasty was going to back up and walk away from that, but good secure by Mowgli to use the Imperial Sigil to finish that off. But that was such a crazy level 1 team fight. I was like side watching what was going on with Rickameza and Netelet, and it was just hilarious watching. Like, I thought Rickameza was going to win that, and it's just like, no, I'm a Catherine. I decide to stun you and you lose.
The one thing about Samuel is he's super strong come level 2. Once that Drifting Dark is there to empower the Malice and Verdicts, it would have been a completely different story if Netelet was looking to try and do the same. Look at this, Fnatic all grouped up in the lane, looking to try and find a kill onto one of these players. TechnoJJ taking a lot of damage. Fnatic going to reveal themselves in lane, but nothing to come from it. Popping a minion candy so that they have a bit of map pressure here. And TechnoJJ can go back to base, get energy, health, and some extra items.
Yeah, and despite Netelet getting that first blood, it is a little bit of a golden advantage for Dynasty. They were able to get a little bit of counter jungling in there, get that middle tree end, so they've managed to pick it up in experience and gold by just a little bit. I think that's definitely good for them. You get the Samuel online faster once that Evil Harvest comes in, they'll be more willing to fight. And then if maybe goes for a Frostburn, then it's just going to be really, really easy for them to kite out this glaive.
Very difficult for Dynasty, I think, with the composition they have to deal with Fnatic's Celeste in the late game. I've played against TechnoJJ's Celeste, and it is disastrous when you fall behind. He is so good at outputting damage, able to single-handedly carry a game. And I'm scared for Dynasty. If Fnatic keep themselves above water during the early game, then to take down TechnoJJ is going to be a very difficult task.
Yep, and we see Palmatoro waiting around for a gank, wants to be able to get Celeste ahead, get TechnoJJ either space in the lane to farm, or be able to pick up a little bit of extra gold off of some of those kills. And for the moment, both teams are willing to back up and farm, and we do see this carry joining up with the jungler to be able to pick up that little bit of extra farm, that gold and experience.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly how this plays out, because clearly gold can only go to 2 of the people. PT Lamb only comes down for the secure, can't really get any of the gold from that. Fnatic, so much investment in protecting TechnoJJ, just lurking in the shadows. Will someone oversteps the question, spotted out by a well-timed Sigil by Mowgli. That's going to allow Dynasty to aggress forward here. The jungle shop has spawned. Dynasty will likely look to try and take control of the area. Take control of the lane as well, just in case Fnatic were looking for some sort of team fight. At the moment, Palmatoro sitting, lurking, going to come on into lane, knock Mowgli under the turret, but he's going to be able to block up with that Crucible that he's earlier purchased. Provide a lot of healing as well with the extra health that Crucible gives him.
Yeah, it was also unfortunate timing. There were still a few minions under the towers, and they didn't get off those 1 or 2 tower shots. Probably would have helped secure the kill. And now the siege begins for Dynasty, poking in, getting Netelet very, very low. Those bounces also putting some pressure onto TechnoJJ. And Palmatoro's back, but it looked like Netelet wanted to get out of there and head back to base. Shop Up has now popped the healing flask, so now looking to stick around, pick up a bit of a fight. Here it goes.
Very risky here, but Mowgli should just fall. Huge stun lock goes onto him, which means that he cannot use a sigil to save his life. And Netelet with this Catherine, once Palmatoro goes in for that afterburn, TechnoJJ and Netelet, they have a stun of their own. They can really just lock someone up and cause them death. And I think this is why Mowgli's going towards a heavy healing build on this Lyra to try and prevent whoever does get unfortunately locked up in that CC from dying. Lyra certainly can provide a lot of burst healing if you stack enough health. And so this triple CC threat that Fnatic have drafted needs to be dealt with in one of 2 ways. Reflex blocks or a lot of burst healing.
Yeah, they also have a lot of general self-sustain out of Rikimeza on the Samuel, so it's possible that they look for this massive healing strategy, where eventually there's a break point, a lull in the damage, the crowd control is used, and Dynasty is able to heal through everything that Fnatic throws out. Unfortunately, that will not happen with Mowgli.
Oh, Mowgli just gets completely deleted, but PT Lamb's looking for a kill of his own. Fountain will be used by Netelet to keep Palmatoro alive in this scenario. And Dynasty have to be a little bit careful, I feel. Palmatoro 4 seconds from that afterburn. PT Lamb gonna be aggressed on by Netelet. The stun connects. Palmatoro dives on in. The core collapse. He's stunned and he's dead. There's that triple CC threat. The worst part of it all, PT Lamb, I think, may have had himself a reflex block. Not sure if he just purchased it now. If he did have it up, then that's an issue.
Yeah, that's minor mechanical mistake, but it is starting to chain in some of those deaths for the side of Dynasty, and Fnatic, they're starting to get into the pace of what their composition wants to do. The more that this glaive, that Palmatoro is able to, make these early kills happen, that's going to set TechnoJJ ahead. And once, you've got a Celeste who's super, super far ahead, it's going to be very, very difficult for the side of Dynasty to be able to set up their siege. And then what does their composition really do beyond that?
Currently, they're struggling, Mouse, here. They've going to continue to try and pressure with Rikimeza on this Samuel. Has so much early game and mid game power, but Fnatic's continuous jumps on ins with their high CC composition providing too much threat. Good Crucible survives Rikimeza, but never mind, he goes down. Solar Storm rips through, and Netelet going to return some damage as well. 5-1. Fnatic are stomping on Dynasty at this point.
Yeah, and there just doesn't seem to be a lot that Dynasty can do. It's a very casual way that Fnatic is managing to pick up these kills. It's just one CC lands and then another, and then what does Dynasty really, do to step up and prevent that? They are getting a little bit of this siege in here. They should be able to pick up this turret. I think they'll get it, but they might cost them.
They're going to lose their lives for a PT Lamb. Doesn't even get the turret. The shield respawns too quickly, and Mowgli, he will just about escape, but it's desperation from Dynasty at this point to get gold back on the board, and it's not coming through. Fnatic now with a great opportunity to just move up themselves and look for a turret of their own. Rikimeza able to thwart back to too much of an attack. Netelet will be able to survive the harassment that Rikimeza wanted to output. Currently, Fnatic very tempered in their aggression.
Yeah, they're willing to take their time, but it's not as much of it's a massive gold deficit that Dynasty has to overcome, but they have to, stop the rate of decay of their strategy. They, are going to manage to get this turret, but the gold is starting to, come back in favor of Fnatic. These kills have just chained one after another, and it doesn't seem as if Dynasty really has a plan for how they want to handle these engagements.
Not only do they not have a plan, it seems like they just don't have the damage either. We all know that Celeste outranges Vox, now level 8, the Helogenesis, going to do so much work, and it's almost on the back of Rikimeza to be able to poke down from the range that he has when his empowered Malice and Verdicts are active, really put Fnatic in a position that they can't afford to engage a fight. Otherwise, it almost seems like a rinse and repeat for Fnatic every time.
Yeah, and wait for it is going to be popped. PT-Line will back up, but takes massive damage. And we're looking at some of the item differences here. TechnoJJ is doing huge damage with this triple item spike.
So huge!
Well,
So much damage. He doesn't even have that third item. It's just a piercing shard at this time. Mowgli will dive on in. Maybe this is it. Oblivion will be blocked up. Net with the silence only onto PT Lamb. Rikumeza not where he wants to be. Gets deleted. And now Dynasty once more trying to run, but PT Lamb cannot. A double for TechnoJJ. Mowgli last man standing. Fnatic should take this turret.
Yeah, great play there. Oh, Mowgli.
Oh no, he is in trouble and he is dead.
Ace.
The ace will come through at the last second, and this pretty much means that Fnatic can get 2 turrets off the bat of this. That is not what Dynasty needed.
Yeah, they had pressure control over this game, map control. Despite that turret going down, they were really dictating the pace of what was going on in the lane. God, TechnoJJ is throwing up massive damage with that 2.5 items, not a full third. And you know, we compare that to what's up, you know, what Rikumeza hasn't managed to finish out that broken myth, doesn't have the Eve of Harvest, so is lacking. You know, granted Samuel has some sustain, but lacking that kind of massive sustain in the middle of those team fights that you can get out of a Samuel. And, you know, PT Lamb is a little bit ahead of Palmatoro, but Palmatoro's job isn't to do massive damage. It's to CC, get some burst out, and let TechnoJJ finish the job.
And he will do massive damage nonetheless, just because of the fact that he's a glaive. If he gets onto a squishy target like Rikumeza, then he is going to just tear through him. Well, whenever there's no defensives, Glaive is going to have a field day, and it's not like Rikumeza is going to be building any armor anytime soon. Dynasty in a whole lot of trouble. TechnoJJ Celeste is just too strong. It's one of the things that Fnatic can really rely on, is the fact that with this CP mage meta, TechnoJJ is going to carry.
Yep, the broken myth is in, and they should be able to find a good engagement now. TechnoJJ being the first one to walk in is not ideal.
Net should be able to lead the charge, but this time Dynasty able to keep their distance. Instead, Fnatic, what they can do is they can just bait fights. They can move to this gold miner, start it up if they want to, force Dynasty to engage onto them, and then just do it all over and over again. It's all about vision control for the team. It's all about finding out where Mowgli is, where the rest of the players are. That's Treant going to go over to Palmatoro, and Fnatic will just do that. Start up this gold miner and say, hey, Dynasty, where you at? Do you want to stop this?
Yeah, I mean, Dynasty is very wary of all of their positioning. They weren't even willing to try and fight for that Treant from over a wall, because just an afterburn and Palmatoro managing to get that stun could set TechnoJJ up for some long-range damage. So we can see how much Dynasty need to rethink the pace of how they want to handle this game. They can't really hard engage. They need to start setting up a siege again, but they're going to have to do it very, very carefully, because Palmatoro is more than willing to flank with Net, and that's just so much crowd control that will come in onto, you know, PT Lamb or even Mowgli. They're more than happy to just burn through the Lyra.
PT Lamb, full damage build, will very unlikely build anymore. Very hard for the Vox to justify going in 4 damage items when Palmatoro is able to output so much damage. TechnoJJ able to output so much damage with their hero selection. Rikumeza has that broken myth, which is kind of a silver lining, but without an Eve of Harvest, he's not going to have the energy to be in long sustained fights, unlike TechnoJJ, who isn't too far off completing his clockwork, just needs another couple hundred gold before he's at that 4 damage item spike. 13 minutes in here, Source, and Dynasty are really desperately looking for a window into this game, but Fnatic not really looking to give it to them.
Yeah, it feels like Dynasty didn't really get to play their game. They didn't get to play their composition. The moment that they were looking to kind of set up that siege, yes, they got that first turret. The moment that started happening, you know, Palmatoro started to show up, and the damage is going to start to come in onto PT Lamb. Nice little bit of cutting away by Dynasty, but they still need to be worried about the hard engage.
Yeah, certainly do. There's so much CC. In fact, Mowgli's going to go on in. That's going to be the Oblivion blocked up. PT Lamb being super aggressive, but he gets stunned up against the wall. TechnoJJ, he's fine, will survive, and Palmatoro will take down PT Lamb. Now it's all on Rikumeza and Mowgli to survive. Going to try and speed them away. Good slows coming through, but the stun connects onto Rikumeza, and that's him in trouble. Finds one, not going to find the other. Palmatoro will get the kill. The Drifting Dark goes too far away, and it is a win for Fnatic. I guess you could say for Dynasty, that single kill onto Techno JJ is almost a saving grace.
Yeah, they got the consolation prize in the kill into Techno JJ, but, you know, it's getting really, really difficult for the side of Dynasty to actually land that damage. Every time they try and go forward, there's too many bodies in the way. Netelet and Palmatoro are standing in the way of that Samuel damage, and we saw how low Techno JJ got. PT Lem was willing to dive that far, you know, into enemy territory to almost get that kill. And if a little bit of that Samuel damage had come through, if a few Malice and Verdicts had landed, maybe they actually turned that fight around. So I definitely give Dynasty props for being willing to take that engagement, but they're going to need to find either better angles on it, or they're going to need to take the fight in a better position or portion of the map.
Currently, Kraken on the map. Fnatic just going to start it up like they did that gold miner, once more baiting the side of Dynasty to come to them. Mowgli has been spotted. Fnatic now a little bit more cautious in their take of this Kraken. Does look like they are going to stop it up, not damage any further, and wait for Dynasty to reveal their plan here. Fnatic now with an opportunity to move on in. Netelet just providing a brick wall. Techno JJ is going to start stacking up some damage here. Needs to get into range, clear this wave. Netelet looking to dive on in as Mowgli stunned up here. Gonna throw out that silence, and it is gonna connect onto two, but Fnatic are able to disengage it. Very content to just walk away when PTLM lands that wait for it. Now the fight's been reset here. Rikmeza trying to get some broken myth stacks, but you can just see that Dynasty are so cautious of getting into a position where Fnatic might be able to turn the fight onto them.
Yeah, they need to have full vision of all the members of Fnatic as they kind of set up their team fight. They want to poke, they want to siege, they want, you know, Palmatoro to have already dove forward, Netelet to have burned the Merciless Pursuit, have some of that crowd control out of the way before they're willing to fully engage. That, or they need to land a really, really good Oblivion, but we've seen how well the Crucibles have been from the side of Fnatic, so it's going to be, you know, a challenge for Rikmeza to make that happen, but some damage is coming in. Ooh.
Just slowing Rikmeza down. The War Tread's forced out of Mowgli to get the whole team to safety. With War Treads gone, Fnatic might just feel comfortable enough to start this Kraken up. Kind of the win condition of the Dynasty composition is the ability to get PT Lamb onto Techno JJ. The whole team past the front line, and look about the Kraken is just melting away. Not even contested by Dynasty. They try to push the lane up, but there she is, unleashed onto the Halcyon Fold. Fnatic now going to round around, clear this wave, and look to push into the base of Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Dynasty knew that that was happening. They were kind of positioned up towards the lane. Maybe they were willing to give that up, but you have to be worried about getting flanked like that. Ooh, Peter Lamb is in a sneaky position.
Onto Techno JJ, stop him up. Here comes the silence. Can't quite get into range. Huge Solar Storm. Oblivion though. Oh, a Malice and Verdict connects. Rikmeza able to snipe. Techno JJ down, but it's Palmatoro time. Maybe not. Techno JJ, PT Lamb will be able to take the kill. Mowgli, in fact, able to snipe it away with the Lyra. That flank there from PT Lamb successful, but that's a once-in-a-game type thing. It will be able to stop the Kraken up, but she might just secure a single turret here, breaking with the base of Dynasty.
Well, it does give Dynasty back a little bit of momentum and probably some confidence. You know, being able to take a play like that, finally managing to slow down your opponent, who's pretty much had no issues throughout the majority of this game. That kind of play we see here in the replay. They do manage to get the core collapse onto the Lyra, and I really thought that PTLM was going to go down, but we finally start to see that Dynasty can come at things from multiple angles. They basically surround their opponents. They have a lot of skill shot, a lot of poke. They're able to thread that through the the upfront tank line that is Fnatic, and finally manage to make something happen.
And because of the fact that PT Lamb needs to be the almost assassination threat onto Techno JJ that allows Rikmeza the opportunity to thread needles and position with the Drifting Dark. There's going to be a fourth item coming through for PT Lamb. Has that crit already in his inventory. the Lucky Strike. We'll have to see if he builds it into a Monocool or a Tornado Trigger. May go for the triple attack speed, depending on how much he feels he needs to get the auto attacks off. Techno JJ is going to be investing in some armor to try and prevent this crit from being effective, which means that Rukumeza, his Malice and Verdicts are going to do a lot of damage. If he gets Broken Myth stacked up, then he certainly can do a lot here. Mowgli, will he go for the re-engage is the question. It's an item sign that's blocked on up. It's Oblivion landing onto Techno JJ. Rukumeza currently just trying to escape, gets stunned up. PT Lamb moving forward, the Solar Storm will connect, but it's not that much damage. Only 3 Broken Myth stacks here, and Dynasty, they could look to turn this fight back on its head. If they could just get into range, they might be able to do so. It's all on Rukumeza and PT Lamb to deal out the damage onto Techno JJ, who is currently doing okay to hold them back, but it's 9 Broken Myth stacks on Rukumeza. Fnatic respectfully realizing that this is not a fight they can win. They're going to backport. The fight has been reset.
Oh, that was probably the best team fighting. Just the general, mechanical skill, good decision making, good positioning we've seen out of Dynasty this game. And that, just the fact that the Oblivion landed onto Techno JJ really set up what could have been an amazing team fight, because there was all of that time in which Celeste isn't doing damage, isn't building stacks, isn't putting pressure, and we could see how much kiting potential there is out of PT Lamb and Rukumeza.
Okay. Now that we've seen that Dynasty can team fight in such a way that's successful, will they be able to do again? Oh dear, maybe not. Rukumeza's in trouble. Solar Storm's going to come through, but he's able to dodge it. Now starting to get some of this healing from Mowgli. Mowgli, he needs some cooldown reduction, only that contraption to provide it. Not really allowing for the burst heals to come through. Maybe going towards an Echo for it. Gonna be the Oblivion going through. 2 put to sleep. Net2Let misses the Crucible. What can Dynasty do with it is the question. Rukumeza, 3 Broken Myth stacks, and Techno JJ starting to force everyone back. Mowgli wants to get in position. The Kraken, she's still active, whacking away at Techno JJ, but Mowgli's in so much trouble. He's going to use that healing to try and escape, but PT Lamb's going to knock him away. Rukumeza has to re-engage, has to lay down the damage. It's a lot of damage. It's going to be Palmatora going down. Net2Let, a double. Can Techno JJ save the fight? Rukumeza looking to try and keep it alive. He will fall down, and Techno JJ will walk away alive as well. Going to be able to get the backport off, it seems. I don't think PT Lamb will find him. Dynasty surviving, Techno JJ escaping. Will they try up the Kraken? They will. This is going to be a risky move, I think, for Dynasty.
Yeah, how far they were willing to go forward for that. It looked like Palmatora had set up just one more kill, but nobody was looking at PT Lamb. He was getting massive damage in there. The Mouse and Verdict and Rukumeza were firing out, and they were getting the type of team fight that they need. It's a fight that's kind of on the run, that seesaws back and forth a lot. The Kraken has been started up, and Techno JJ is looking to fight this. The core collapse is going to miss.
Techno JJ's in a bit of trouble here. I think PT Lamb should be able to get the kill. Looks like he's going to be able to. Yes, he does. The ace comes through just as Net2Let respawns in Palmatoro. Kraken going to be restarted here. Rukumeza hasn't spawned yet. This is still risky from Dynasty. Maybe with Techno JJ down, they feel more comfortable going for this Kraken. But Palmatoro, he is a Kraken stealing machine on this glaive. So much burst damage comes out from his afterburn auto attack combination. And it's going to have to be a bright bulwark and a lot of aggression, I think, coming out of Dynasty, or at least threatened aggression out of Rukumeza and PT Lamb to keep Palmatora off this. Bright bulwark goes down, the Oblivion will fall as well, and the Kraken will be unleashed for Dynasty. They are making this work at the moment, Source, and now a Kraken is on the Halcyon Fold for them.
Yeah, and an item change, getting rid of the crit, and has gone for a Bone Saw. PT Lamb is at that 4 damage items, pretty much full build. Will just be picking up an infusion to top off that damage. So Palmatoro in a little bit of trouble. Can't be eating up those stacks like before. Same with Net2Let.
And the Bone Saw coming through for PT Lamb is so clever as well. He started with crit, he forced Techno JJ to build armor, and then he gets himself a Bone Saw to shred that armor, making the armor almost useless for Techno JJ. And it's only going to be good for Rukumeza, because he's going to be able to output so much damage on this Samuel with the Broken Myth stacking up. Very clever itemization from Dynasty. It's giving them opportunities onto Techno JJ. Only a single turret won with that Kraken, but Dynasty showing hope in this game.
Yeah, they do need to be worried that one big team fight could be the end for them. They can't get overconfident because they've been able to find the right team fights. The first one was pretty much of their own making. The second one was a little bit of over-aggression by Fnatic. So maybe Fnatic can temper some of these plays. They are, still looking for opportunities, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they need to not be forcing opportunities where they aren't, where they don't exist. They need to make sure that TechnoJJ is building up stacks, is laying down this heliogenesis, because in the last few fights we haven't really seen that. It's been kind of these, instant burst engages, and the core collapses have been missing. The core collapse misses, that slows down TechnoJJ's ability to build up stacks, and it also stops that initial burst that was what let them get the lead in the first place.
Because Netelet has himself a no-wave gauntlet, we're seeing Mowgli going to be building himself up an Aegis. The reflex block is there to block up the no-wave gauntlet item silence, since he has only activatables in his inventory. Contraption, Crucible, War Treads, Fountain, and now an Aegis with the Echo. 6 activatables. A well-timed no-wave gauntlet from Netelet shuts down Mowgli's ability to carry his team through items heavily. Rikomeza going to pick himself up that Eve of Harvest, but PTLM has been knocked aside. Gonna throw out, the Oblivion blocked up. Netelet moving on in, the item silence. Has it gone out yet? I haven't seen. Yes, it did. It was blocked successfully by Mowgli, and the team fight once more will be reset. Fountain still intact for both these captains, but not much else left for the side of Dynasty.
Yeah, a lot of major cooldowns used. Arcane Passage, the only ultimate still up for the side of Dynasty. There's still the Solar Storm on TechnoJJ, but that's really kind of, a mid-team fight executing spell. Nothing that is really going to allow either team to heavily engage for the moment. So I think things slow down a little bit unless Dynasty feels confident they can take this fight. Here come the slows.
Those are coming out. Mowgli should be able to escape them. I think now that the Aegis has been completed for Mowgli, Netelet would do well to sub out that no-wave gauntlet for an Echo. Look for the double blast tremor, because silencing up could be huge. Either way, here comes that portal. Look at PT Lamb, so aggressive but stunned up. Damage coming out of Rikomeza, looking for the damage. They've taken down one, but PT Lamb dies. Can Rikomeza get away is the question. Pops the boots, trying to escape Palmatoro. Palmatoro looking for the damage, but first heal comes through. Netelet on the front line. 9 broken myth stacks for Rikomeza, looking to lay down so much hurt. And Fnatic, they're looking to escape as well. Netelet may not be able to. Rikomeza laying down the pain train, but can't quite find the kills. It's a single death, both carries dead. How do Dynasty react?
PT Lamb has been so good about getting into the backline and finding these really forced flanks onto TechnoJJ. Maybe that was just, a difficult place for them to fight. They were fighting down in the corridor. It's pretty much a line. They're gonna be, Rikomeza is gonna be able to land, pretty good skill shots now that he's gotten that full build. At least in terms of actually no, it's going for a 4th damage item. So not finished hitting hard yet. Rikomeza might actually, what would you end up going for there? Would you go for the Shatter Glass?
Yeah, I think it has to be Shatter Glass. I don't know what else you could build. Maybe Broken Myth, a 2nd Broken Myth for the Aegis. You see that TechnoJJ now has an Aegis. He sold his armor for shielding. The back and forth of these items on the carries are incredible. I wouldn't be surprised if PT Lamb finds a bit of gold and subs out for a Monaco or a Tornado Trigger and goes, you know what? Now I'm going to hurt you even more so, but maybe Rikomeza goes towards another piercing shard. Let's have another fight. PT Lamb in a bit of trouble, looking to try and escape, but he is in so much trouble. He is straight up dead. Rikomeza, he's going to be knocked back. Team fight not going well for Dynasty, but a huge heal comes through from Mowgli to keep Rikomeza alive. The double kill is there for TechnoJJ. Their death timers are devastating for Dynasty. Fnatic looking like they want to push the lane.
PT Lamb was all about the cheeky plays, all about sneaking behind the back line, and that time Fnatic read the play, instantly got the core collapse down, and that's really gonna start to, become a problem if they don't manage to make this defense. The death timers aren't super long. They didn't manage to get the ace. Rikomeza might be able to clear this out. I think they lose at least one of these turrets, and the Oblivion is used, and that's a problem.
Yeah, Oblivion used to try and clear the way, but the turrets, they're going to fall nonetheless. PT Lamb's back up. It's all on PT Lamb to get onto TechnoJJ and stop this from being game over. 1 kill may go over. No kills before the Vein Crystal falls. Fnatic, they do it. Dynasty drop a single team fight in the late game, and that was their demise. That was their win condition, to keep winning team fights, or else it was game over and a Fnatic win.
Fnatic managed to get the early lead, lose things in the mid game, and managed to pull it back and let's throw things back over to Munchables, guys to the desk to break that one down.
Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, we are back at the desk. My name is Munchables. I'm joined once again by my wonderful analysts, Tasty Bacon and Iraqi Zorro, as we break that game down just a little bit more, as that was definitely a longer game than I think we've seen all season so far. Definitely much more about the macro play and much more about trying to pick these team fights, and there was some exceptional team fights in that game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these fights were really well played by both sides, especially towards the middle to late game, you know, when it was really more back and forth than the early game or the very late game. It was really fun to watch the way that these players interacted with each other and with the different abilities that were coming out, and dodging certain crowd controls, dodging the ultimates from the Celeste, things like that. It was really well played.
Yeah, for sure. And I liked how Fnatic actually played to their win condition in the early game, using the gank synergy with the Glaive and the Catherine.
I mean, we have some replays of their early game, actually. About 9 minutes and 30 seconds into the game, this was a good example.
Yeah, so we can see them, they Lyra portal in, which I don't think is the smartest thing to do here, just because you're going to put your Vox a little bit separate from your Samuel. Samuel gets stunned with the afterburn and they just burst him down. This is the type of synergy that we haven't seen from Fnatic come out yet, and it was very fantastic to see this game, and it's something that they needed to do to execute on this comp. So they did it. And
they managed to get 2 turrets off the back of that as well, so capitalizing on that lead. But then things really started to slow down after that point. After Fnatic got 2 turrets for themselves, it was a long time until we really saw any more significant fights. It was around 17 minutes that the next kind of significant team fight really happened in the game, which is a long, long time.
Yeah, it felt like almost Fnatic was waiting for opportunities. Like, they didn't want to be going into the composition of Dynasty, and rightfully so, as once a couple of items started to come online, they were losing team fights. Like, they were having a lot of trouble actually being able to close out this game because Dynasty sort of came online. The Samuel was able to start outputting a lot of damage. They were able to get onto the Celeste in those later game team fights.
Yeah, and that was when Dynasty started team fighting a little bit smarter. They started using the sustain from Lyra, they started engaging correctly, and target focusing together. The Vox and the Samuel on the same target, outputting the damage at the same time. That's how they started getting the kills in those team fights and started winning them. So it's good to see Dynasty fighting back, and it's not just Fnatic rolling over them. This was a great team fight because TechnoJJ almost got a triple kill. He didn't manage quite to get it, but he still got 1 kill and managed to escape with his life. Had he not done that, had Dynasty got an ace, they would have been able to take Kraken and push with it afterwards and might have closed in the game.
Yeah, and that was a dicey situation as well. If Dynasty tries to commit to finishing that kill as well, that easily could have gone the way of Fnatic. Very much on a knife's edge to that situation, but did kind of end in a stalemate. And then our next fight was a little bit more of a convincing fight coming on through, and Fnatic obviously managing to finish this game out off the back of the team fight and managing to push things through into a victory. It was definitely a strong showing from Fnatic, but this portal engage was something that I wasn't a big fan of.
Yeah, and the reason they went for this portal engage because they'd done this a couple times earlier and actually won out the fights. But the big difference was when they did that, they had built up some broken mid stacks on the Samuel before the portal came out. And this time they went straight in immediately. TechnoJJ drops a core collapse at his feet to defend himself so he doesn't go down instantly. And then they're able to reposition themselves and find the damage that they needed onto the PT Lamb and onto Mowgli.
And it's worth mentioning that Dynasty composition needed to get ahead early on, as we mentioned, by going up to lane, trying to siege before Celeste gets to level late. But Fnatic did a great job, as we said, by ganking and denying Dynasty the opportunity to do that. The thing is, once Dynasty got out of the early game even, they almost didn't have a win condition to execute on because they needed to dive on Celeste, and you can't quite dive with a triple range comp. It's very hard to do.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it kind of got to a situation where you can't use a siege composition if you're not in the position where you're actually sieging. You have to be the one with your foot on the accelerator pedal, and it wasn't really the case for them in that game. Now, let's start to talk about the next game in this series, because that definitely was a lot closer than I think some people at home may have been expecting. Obviously, Fnatic were the favorites coming into this series, but definitely Dynasty, they gave them a run for their money right there. They definitely gave them a showing. So what are we expecting to see in this next game from Dynasty? Are we still expecting a ranged composition like this where they can kind of hold Fnatic at arm's length?
I would hope that we don't see a full range composition. I do really like to see Dynasty be a little bit more aggressive, especially Riku Meza. I think his ability to target focus and target select when he goes into a team fight is really impressive. But when you're playing something like the Samuel, it doesn't matter how good your target selection is or your target focus or anything, because you're not in full control of who you're going to be hitting. You have to try and get your shots around other targets, and Fnatic was able to body block a lot of those Malice and Verdicts down the stretch. So I would really like to see Riku Meza play something that he can be a little bit more aggressive with.
Yeah, and it's true what you just said, because their win composition or win condition became very strong once they didn't get a lead. And the idea is, if you get a draft similar to that, make sure you play to your advantages. If you don't get those advantages, your composition is very limited and can't do much else. So you have to play very precisely.
Yeah, absolutely. So now looking at the side of Fnatic, it's quite kind of a different story. I feel like they actually played a blinder in the draft, managing to get Catherine as the final pick. They had some mind games on the go. Are we expecting to see a similar thing now that they're on the A side of the draft? Because obviously things change quite stylistically on the other side.
I mean, I do expect them to do different things, but one thing I want to touch on is both things they did really well in that first game, which was their draft superiority and in-game synergy to play as a unit. Those are the things I mentioned were lacking from Fnatic even yesterday, and they seem to have recovered from how they have been playing and improved on those two things. So as long as they keep making sure they do that, they don't have anything to worry about.
All right, let's talk about Fnatic and in a situation where obviously they are the favorites coming into this series. I think that's a fair statement to say. Dynasty finished last season in the 4th seed. Fnatic were a single point away from 1st seed. Now, SK Gaming have already made it on into the finals. If Fnatic does go forward in this series and go into the finals themselves, do we think the showing we've just seen out of them in Game 1 is going to be good enough to go up against the likes of SK?
I would say so. That Game 1 was incredible, just again, because they had a very clear strategy they wanted to execute on, and they executed as a unit, so they're doing great. Alliance ban, that's a little bit surprising since they prioritize it, as we've mentioned before. Netitoleta likes it a lot. Catherine comes ahead from Dynasty, and Grace picked up. This is a character that's extremely strong. We talk about it all the time. Allows for so many different comps to be played on the side of Fnatic. One thing I might expect is Adagio paired with it. I know Adagio is a great pick for Tetno JJ, and they like to play that composition. Let's see if it comes through.
Yeah, the Lyra coming through means we are going to have those double healers, so fairly even once we get towards the later stages of the game. Obviously, early on, the advantage does go to Lyra in terms of sustain, having the heal available right off the bat, whereas Grace has to wait until level 6. Blackfeather going to be taken off the board, heavily contested pick. It's going to be rare to see Blackfeather actually on the fold, especially in Europe, I think, for at least a few weeks because of the emphasis that's going to be put onto it. Now with the pedal ban by Fnatic, this is strange because usually, again, pedal ban means they want to play Kroll, but usually this is a B-side ban because you have the next pick. By banning away the pedal, I guess this is probably going to be like a mind game type of thing of trying to say, Dynasty, do you want the Kroll? Like, you have to think about it.
I mean, they played mind games in draft number 1. You expect the same thing here. It's going to be an interest lock-in for Dynasty.
I mean, so the pedal ban was so that if Dynasty pick up Celeste with the Lyra, as or Fnatic did the first game, they would have been able to pick Cruel against it. But now it's not the scenario. Dynasty went for CP Idris. I'm most likely expecting this to be. Fnatic has many options. They can go for the Celeste again. It pairs greatly with Grace, and they have a range advantage in that scenario. Or they go for the Jewel. That could very possibly be a weapon power Jewel like we saw yesterday.
Yeah, we saw it do amazing things yesterday. So it could be a pretty fun one from Fnatic. Obviously, they could also round out the composition with a Kroll, but that would be super risky with the triple melee situation. So I would expect them to go for something maybe a little bit more range, maybe something like the Samuel could come out again. Obviously, the Jewel is going to be... Oh, they are going to go for the Kroll. So, I mean, this is opening them up to maybe challenge Riku Meza, say, does Riku Meza play this Rhyme? Because the triple melee, this is inviting a Rhyme pick to come through.
What do we think about this dual pick then? Because alongside a Crawl, you're always going to see Crawl go weapon power. Is there an argument for CP dual here, or is it that definitely just going to be weapon power as well?
It's not always going to see Crawl weapon power. We saw a couple utility Crawls last season. They didn't do amazingly well, but it is a possibility.
I do think this Fnatic composition is going to be double weapon power with Jewel being weapon power too. Why it's going to work so great is if Idris is CP, Idris takes some time to wrap up and become that strong carry that he is. So if Jewel applies the pressure that she can, get a turret, get a kill, get some map advantage, they can do great.
Not only that, but even once you get to the late game, the CP Idris, if you just get hit by a stray Thunder Strike, that's going to be about 3/4 of his health taken off because he's not going to have that defense. And they're going to go with a Taka from Dynasty. So taking a triple melee and just not taking the triple melee counter of the Rhyme is
Taka
surprising.
is a character that we have not seen for a very long time, but why it works so great against Jewel is because if he uses his ultimate on Jewel, he will end up behind her, removing the advantage that her perks give her with the defense on the front side. So it's a pick that can work against Jewel, but at the same time, it's very risky because it's going up against a Cruel. I expect if Cruel plays aggressive and goes into the jungle, he can completely shut down Taka.
The one advantage Taka does have against a Cruel, though, is once he starts building up those weakness stacks, you pop into a Kaku, all of a sudden he can't use that Spectral Smite against you any longer, and you can wait until those stacks wear off. So that's one interaction that we're going to have to really keep our eyes on, is going to be those weakness stacks.
This is definitely going to be a battle of the junglers, I think it's fair to say. This Taka, an interesting pick, but it's definitely a pick that you can take over a game if you can build up a bit of a lead, if you can snowball with this, but a lot of the pressure going to be on Rikumeza's shoulders. We've been saying how he's this jungler that's trying to become a more aggressive player. If you want to be an aggressive player, Taka is definitely the pick for it.
Yeah, it is, and I still expect Fnatic to take this one. Based on how they played the first game and based on this draft, they have clear advantages that they can use. If they stick to their camp plan, I expect them to take this serious.
All right, so Fnatic advantage. Do you agree with that one, Bacon?
Yeah, I agree, just because there's nothing to deal with this triple melee on the side of Dynasty. Like, they're going to be able to just jump onto this Idris, and there's no answer. The only sort of answer they have is going to be that Lyra Bulwark, but if they're already in your face, the Bulwark's not going to get them away.
All right, well, we'll see whether they're going to be able to get them away. We want you guys to get involved on social media as well. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. Let us know who you want to take this series. Can Fnatic turn this into a 2-0 or a Dynasty going to pull things back on in? It's time to get on into the game. Dowsy and the Source, take it away.
Thank you very much, Munchables, and a very exciting matchup to come out of these two teams. Very interesting draft as well, as you see that Taka joining us on the Halcyon Fold for Rikumeza. And I'm suspecting this might be a weapon power Tucker as well. We saw in 2.8 Source the Spell Sword come into play, a new item that provides cooldown reduction, energy regen, and a lot of weapon power as well. Kind of makes this weapon power Tucker a little bit more viable again, and with a CP Idris, I think that Dynasty have some form of win condition that they can execute. Kite, blow up Drool, and get that CP Idris to a 9 Broken Myth stack so he can take over.
Yeah, the damage is definitely going to be there for Dynasty if they reach that point in the game. I think their only concern is that they may not have the survivability. A lot of this is going to be on Mowgli to land those Bright Bulwarks. The moment that, either the Benediction is starting or any of these gap closers. There's so many gap closers with the Rocket Leap and the Dead Man's Rush. As soon as either of those is kind of started, Mowgli has to almost predict them.
We've kind of teased that we feel this will be a double weapon power composition coming out of Fnatic. Techno JJ on this Jewel. We saw Jewel come out for Hammy in yesterday's North American Vainglory8 games. Fairly successful coming out in North America, able to kind of just blow up these squishy CP mages that are popular in the meta. Cruel here as well has had so much success since the rise of Tension Bow, and will be able to really reduce the damage output of the Idris if he gets on top of him. Has the CC as well provided. Lots of CC with this triple melee composition, and we've talked a lot about CP Idris here and item progression, whether you should go Frostburn or Shadowglass, and I think that this is one of those games where Frostburn almost seems like the necessary item for Dynasty to have any form of kiting ability.
Actually, I just generally believe in Frostburn at this point. I like being able to kite things for free. It's just it's way too much fun when you're playing an Idris, and it lends Idris a level of mobility that, you know, puts you in the same vein as something like a Petal. Petal's got a Frostburn. There's just this ability to continuously be kiting your opponents, and up against all this triple, you know, this triple melee like you mentioned, it's going to be key, especially after that initial jump. Assuming that he survives and the Bright Bulwark stops some of the momentum, the Imperial Sigil comes out and keeps him alive, PT Lamb is going to need to still play out of his mind even once he has the Frostburn to stay alive.
Have to see how Ricomeza performs with a weapon power Tucker, currently going towards that tension bow and then a likely spell sword to come through. Makes the Tucker, you know, with the cooldown reduction, the energy regen, almost as threatening as a CP Tucker. That's the main benefit of it, is that you have that cooldown reduction in a weapon power item, and now the likes of Glaive and Tucker can be as threatening with their kind of utility aspects as their CP counterparts. Palmatora gonna come on in. Looks like Ricomeza pretty happy to just space on out of there with this invis. Honestly, have to be a little bit careful because Fnatic aren't quite done with their aggression. They haven't quite found the aggression they need to really start fights at the moment. So it's more just about threatening and poking down Dynasty.
Yeah, and Palmatora is a little bit ahead, and they will die.
Okay, just about. Doesn't quite block the Spectral Smite, but able to walk away nonetheless.
So, I was saying Palmatora is a little bit ahead in terms of farm, is now doing a little bit of counter jungling, but you see Ricomeza over in his side of the jungle doing the same, so that will be stalled out a little bit, but there's a bit of an advantage for Palmatora in that sense. So a little bit faster on the jungle clear because of all of the pressure that Dynasty has been looking for in the lane. They've been looking to catch somebody out, maybe find the gank, but they don't have a massive amount of crowd control to really facilitate that. So they're really banking on Fnatic to be a little bit out of position. Now, it's a triple melee composition. People will be diving forward. That is likely to happen, but I think Dynasty, you know, might want to slow it down a little bit and wait for Idris to get an item or two.
Very interesting to see a single crystal bit purchased here for Ricomeza. He's completed his tension bow, but maybe going to go towards more of an on-hit effect. Tucker build, maybe an aftershock afterwards, and then from there, a Storm Crown, a Broken Myth, a Spell Sword. So many different options available to the Tucker, but truly will be hybrid seemingly coming through. There's that X-Retsu going out, lots of damage going down onto Jewel, but Palmatora is here, stuns up, Bright Bulwark stops JJ from getting in. They've kept Ricomeza alive as well. The fountain, well, not even a fountain, it was a sigil coming through. Mowgli once more committing to the Crucible first item, able to get Ricomeza out safely.
Yeah, Techno JJ took a lot of damage very, very fast. Ricomeza, we're starting to see how much damage you can get out of a tension bow up against a Jewel who hasn't built any defenses, but here comes the dive again, and a nice Imperial Sigil to stop, or Bright Bulwark to slow that down.
Yeah, no, Mowgli has to be on point with those Bright Bulwarks. Cooldown reduction, name of the game for Mowgli, not only due to the fact that he's stacking health, so he can output as high of a heal as possible, but also just because if he doesn't have that Bright Bulwark up and available for every engage that comes out for Fnatic, then it's going to be trouble for his very squishy two teammates. The Tucker and the Idris not really going to be super tanky in their own right. PT Lamb has that Frostburn as discussed. Definitely a must in this game, it feels. Looks like he's going to be heading back and starting towards that alternating current as we usually see come through, but I think it's Ricomeza that I'm most interested in focusing on build-wise and seeing where he decides to go after this.
Yeah, I mean, picking up a reflex block is good into that much crowd control. I still really want to see the spell sword. I definitely think you're right that the on-hit makes a lot of sense, but as long as Ricomeza is surviving throughout the fight because there's some weapon power in there, that's a good Holy Nova to start things off, but we'll follow.
Palmatora. Ooh, it's threatening when he comes in like this. Very scary. See the min candy popped. Ricomeza has himself the reflex box, so obviously respecting the ability for Palmatora to come in and just immediately stun him up with the From Hell's Heart.
So no engagements just yet, but Palmatora is waiting in the wings, is looking for the opportunity to strike onto PT Lamb. I definitely think that Ricky Meza might be a slightly better target. Yes, Taka's really difficult to deal with, but if they take him out, right now PT Lamb I don't think has the damage to finish off those fights long term. So getting that grouped up CC is definitely good if Netalite can land solid crowd control. Actually, they want to go onto Techno JJ.
Yeah, certainly do. Techno JJ going to take a bit of damage. Hell's Heart going to go out. Bright Bulwark, they're going to defend Dynasty from any re-engage from Fnatic, and that's a lot of CC just eliminated by Dynasty's ability to escape here. Able to now hold control over the lane. The Bright Bulwark 7 seconds away. Rocket jump comes back up for Techno JJ. There's the dive by Rikomeza onto the turret. Going to get the heal and just escape away. Fnatic, another re-engage, just not doing anything to them. Dynasty looking very confident in this game so far.
Yeah, Fnatic hasn't been able to find that solid engagement, although that is a bit of damage onto Mowgli.
Love it, just pops down the sigil and takes the Thunder Strike like a champ. Every time that sigil's up, he's very confident to do so. Here comes Rikomeza. Who's he going to go for? Palmatoro diving on in with Techno JJ, but Rikomeza onto this cruel. He's in trouble, but he's going to get the Divine Intervention to heal him on up. Rikomeza looking to get back out of the fight is just about able to. It's not going to be a too impactful big red button. PT Lamb diving on in. The Chakram's firing all over, but Rikomeza gets stunned on up, and that's his death. First blood going to Techno JJ. Too much aggression coming from Dynasty. They're looking like they're going to get themselves a turret nonetheless.
Yeah, good play out of Dynasty to be able to at least salvage the death from Rikomeza. I thought Rikomeza might have been a little aggressive to go in there again. They clearly had forced Palmatora to back, or at least step away from that fight. He was very, very low. He actually looked like he was going to go back in a third time and pick that fight again. But we still haven't seen Fnatic really make solid use of their composition. They managed to get that kill off of over-aggression from Rikomeza, but they haven't been able to find the engagement. And if Dynasty can continue to just stall out and frustrate the members of Fnatic, eventually they will make a mistake and overcommit on a heavy, heavy engagement.
Currently, with that one kill, Fnatic keeping the gold fairly even. We do have to see how Dynasty continue to develop this game. The Eclipse Prism in Rikomeza's inventory, signaling that he will go towards the Aftershock. There it is, completed. Now, Fnatic lurking in the shadows, spotted out by Mowgli. They're not going to be able to get any surprise attacks here onto Dynasty, but they're looking even more confident than before. This Tornado Trigger now for Techno JJ gives a lot of damage to the Jewel.
Yeah, and Fnatic have been continuing to just kind of walk forward into this. They don't feel confident that they can hard engage onto Mowgli on the Lyra, which you would think with this triple melee composition, the amount of damage they have reasonably built up, that's a tension bow, sorry blade, that should be enough to get the job done. But they're really just looking for that opportune moment to find out either PT Lamb or Rikomeza. And again, I think if they take Rikomeza out of the fight, PT Lamb becomes a much easier target for them to deal with, or they can just disengage that and then look for an objective. If you know that the Taka is off the board, that makes some of the jungle objectives more valuable. You can go for that gold miner, maybe even body into the enemy jungle and go for the crystal sentry. So taking Rikomeza off the board, I think, opens up the competition for Fnatic, because they don't have to worry about Rikomeza flanking them or stealthing out and then showing back up in the middle of the team.
Very interesting to see that Rikomeza are going to be prioritizing crystal infusions this game as well. More cooldown, energy regen, bit of crystal power as well to get himself even more damage, I guess, on that X-Retsu. Currently, Dynasty happy to let this gold miner go over to Fnatic. Fnatic wait out that sigil, which means there can't be any steal. That's a huge gold swing over towards Fnatic. 1200 gold, but Dynasty looking like they want to engage the fight. Look at the damage already onto Techno JJ. He's in trouble, but a stun comes through onto PT Lamb. Looks to turn this fight. Palmatoro onto this Idris, but he's going to Shimmer Strike. Rikomeza trying to deal with Techno JJ. He does find the kill, and now Palmatoro now has to escape, trying to do his best, but he's going to go down. PT Lamb finds the kill, and Dynasty going to punish Fnatic for that gold miner take.
the new value of Taka in 2.8, you have that Mortal Wound built into the Xretsu. You've got that high amount of cooldown reduction to be able to apply that multiple times on the multiple targets. And we saw that Divine Intervention didn't get that much value. Techno JJ got bursted very, very hard, and the Fountain came through. That didn't keep him alive either. He used pretty much everything he had to try and DPS through that, and they used as much of the additional sustain that they had on the side. And we are going to go into replay, and you can just see how little value that the additional healing is coming out. We did see off screen that PT Lamb did go down. Rickameza looked like he was in trouble, but managed to scurry away.
Yeah, just about gets away. PT Lamb a little bit too happy to stick around after that turret was taken, and does open up the door for Fnatic to try and take one of their own. Rickameza going to do his best. PT Lamb deleted! Where did he go? He is gone. Rickameza now looking to turn onto Palmatora as well. Look at the burst coming out, resetting his tension bow, resetting his aftershock, and here he comes one more time for the Xretsu to take him on down. PT Lamb going to join the fight. Rickameza going to be very happy to jump on in with Dynasty. They take down 2. What can they take? Looks like they might go for a Crystal Sentry. Or a Gold Miner. Go for a Gold Miner instead.
We are starting to see, though, that Palmatora survived that fight way too long. There wasn't enough damage from Rickameza to finish the job with just 2 items. So, whether or not Rickameza actually picks up a 3rd damage item before finishing out some of those defenses, we can see over the course of the fight that Rickameza can't finish the job. Now, they are able to completely destroy Techno JJ. He is very, very vulnerable to the amount of damage that is coming out of this Taka. It's difficult for him to item prioritize. He's currently still holding that Book of Eulogy, so maybe looking at a lifesteal item, I think that'll probably go away and be traded in for another defensive item at the moment. But Techno JJ is pretty much at the damage we can expect him to be at. So he has to start surviving these fights, because we pretty much haven't seen Techno JJ do all that much, and this triple melee composition has been unable to really engage the fight. It's Mowgli who's starting things up.
Yeah, certainly. You kind of saw in the draft that it almost felt like Fnatic were baiting Dynasty to go towards the Rhyme pick, and that would put them in an interesting position. Do they go double CP with a CP Idris, or do they kind of put PT Lamb on a less favorable pick? The weapon power Idris would have done very poorly into this composition. Instead, Dynasty have other plans. This Taka being so impactful. Rickameza is going to rejoin his team, make sure this first turret doesn't fall. It's a 2,000 gold lead for the side of Dynasty at the moment, and we're just 15 seconds away from the Kraken respawning.
Yeah, this Taka definitely feels like a good confident pick out of Rickameza. Definitely knows how to play it well, but Fnatic seem a little flustered. They don't know how to really handle where they want to prioritize their defensive CC, the holding over for the peel. They haven't been able to actually get a solid engagement. Every time that they're looking for it, Mowgli is able to sneak in there and start things up. Has used the Arcane Passage, so that'll be down for a while, slowing what is basically the engage for Dynasties. Mowgli goes in, locks somebody down, stops all that movement and those dash abilities, and then they manage to get the burst on Techno JJ, and Techno JJ, you might be out of position.
Just a little bit. Trying to lay down damage onto Mowgli. We do see a Bonesaw completed for Palmatora as his second item. So much armor being completed from the side of Dynasty. This double weapon power composition from Fnatic. Very easily countered with those metal jackets and atlases. Oh my goodness, PT Lamb, 4 broken myth stacks, and he's starting to do a huge amount of damage. Dynasty want to re-engage. JJ ready to welcome them through the door. Here comes Palmatora as well. They stun up Rickameza. The PT Lamb safe. Diving around, the chakram rips through. 1 kill, 2. It's Dynasty winning, and Net2Let, the last man standing, may just be able to escape. It's Kraken time for Dynasty, and PT Lamb wants a choke point turret as well.
Fnatic's composition got opened up by that initial poke coming out of PT Lamb. The CP Idris is doing solid amounts of damage. They were able to get 2 or 3 chakrams plus plenty of auto attacks. He does have the broken myth, so there would have been some broken myth stacks in there. That's going to be the ace coming through. They managed to pick up the additional kill. They've got the Kraken, and this is all looking really good for Dynasty.
Certainly is, and Fnatic, will they even contest this Kraken is the question. It's going down so quickly. They might be able to speed their way over, but it's just too risky, I think. They've already lost Net2Let. Dynasty making things work here. The burst that comes out of Rickameza, like Araki Zoro pointed out, when he does Xretsu onto Jewel, he's behind her. He can proc the extra damage that heroic perk kind of defends from. Bonus defensive stats when the damage comes from the front end, but if it comes from behind, it does even more. The armor's just not there. Forward-facing armor on this hero, and now Dynasty looking to push in for a win.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Riku Meza is going to dash my hopes and crush my dreams of seeing a spell sword. It looks like it's going to be just normal on-hit Taka. You've got that armor pen, is now working towards a Storm Crown, and I'll be a little bit sad about that. But this game looks very, very good for the side of Dynasty. They block out the From Hell's Heart.
Huge Crucible comes from Mowgli, and look at this, Riku Meza just going on in. It's Palmatoro struggling. Techno JJ almost one more auto attack through the Duke, but he jumps away. Palmatoro will go down. They find one kill, and now it's the turrets they're focusing on. Mowgli to go forward and stop Techno JJ from getting in with a bright bulwark, and it looks like it's all over here for Fnatic. It's just the Vein Crystal left. The Kraken, she's at half HP, and Techno JJ, he is almost straight up dead. They've done it, Dynasty. The Taka from Riku Meza, a secret pocket pick, I think, from him that he's been holding on to, and it works so well.
Damage, stealth, and the mortal wounds. I thought that Grace was going to be great in 2.8. Now that there's less healing, her healing is more valuable, but it's just so difficult for any of the healing to come through. The fountain doesn't do enough. They can't keep Techno JJ up, and Dynasty are able to rip through and bring this to a Game 3.
Game 3 on the way. Exciting times for this second semi-final. Let's see what the desk has to say.
Thank you very much, guys. My name is Munchables. I'm joined once again by Tasty Bacon and Iraqi Zori to break this game down a little bit. And what a game it was. Dynasty coming out of the gate swinging right there. To be honest, I feel like I almost have to apologize for Dynasty. I'd kind of counted them out in this series, but proving that they are absolutely still in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I did not think that they were going to have a chance with the way that these compositions drafted out, but their execution in the game plan was phenomenal. This Taka from Riku Meza, I think that was the big key, is that I kind of underestimated how much the Taka was going to be able to do in this composition.
And we have to mention how his build was actually quite smart. Because he had the CP laner with the CP Idris, he opted to go for the Tension Bow with the Aftershock proc so that he can have a little bit of weapon power in his damage output so that they don't get countered with only shield from coming out from Fnatic. And the way they played the team fights by splitting up Jewel from Cruel, that was the smartest thing they could do so that they could focus out Jewel and kill her without having to deal with the Cruel at the same time.
Yeah, making sure that they've got kind of that hybrid damage. I had multiple threats coming on through, and honestly, I was impressed at how well Riku Meza played this Taka as well, making sure that he was a threat on the map. We were worried that in that matchup against the Cruel, he wasn't going to be able to hold his own necessarily, but he absolutely did in that game and had an incredible effect during those team fights as well. We should be able to take a look at some of those team fights that happened across the course of this game. But Dynasty, with I think it was an 8-2 scoreline at the end of the game, definitely looking strong, and also having a very quick victory for themselves as well. Now, we do have a replay of one of the fights that happened at around 15 minutes into this game, so we should be able to take a look at that one.
And this was one of those situations where already Dynasty has a pretty sizable advantage. They get a nice little rotation onto Fnatic here and just poke them out. You can see already Techno having to jump away and get the Divine Intervention, the Echo being used right off the bat. Now Netsuela is low and has to use that Fountain and another Divine Intervention before really too much has even broken down. And finally, once Riku Meza and PT Name are stacked up, those broken mid stacks just tearing through the health of the side of Fnatic, even with an Aegis on Palmatoro, it just wasn't anywhere near enough to keep him alive.
And to me, this is a sign of Fnatic losing their confidence. Their composition needed to be very decisive on the engagements that were coming out, and that wasn't decisive at all. They just stood in front of Dynasty and let them poke them and push them back instead of just going in and sticking to your win condition, which is to get on Idris and kill him. And that could be a result of how the early game went, because the early game was very passive from Fnatic, something very surprising because of their composition. Cruel can get in the jungle, he can apply a lot of pressure, he can shut down Taka, and Jewel has the potential to get turrets off of Idris, but they just didn't play to that.
Even just the fact that you double weapon power, it says that you need to be aggressive in the early game before they can afford to build a lot of defense and things. We have a replay of the final fight of the game as well that sealed the deal for Dynasty and evened up this series, and you can see obviously Dynasty already had a significant lead at this point and pushing along with the Kraken.
Yeah, and you could see the echo actually from Lyra. Mowgli picked it up, something you don't see every time coming out of Lyra's, but it helped them to keep the sustain going when they needed it. You could see here Idris engaging on Techno JJ, and this is again not very decisive. They're splitting up. Cruel is going one way, Jewel is going another, and this is how Dynasty were able to kill Cruel every single team fight, especially in the mid game. They ended up pushing Jewel back and get the kill on Cruel. The idea is that Fnatic are going back to their old bad habits of splitting up instead of staying together on the same target. Especially when you have a Cruel with a carry, you need to protect that carry. That's Cruel's main job, is to protect that carry that's going to be outputting the damage. You can't go chase targets on your own.
I have to say as well, it felt like in this game, the Jewel wasn't really having, it wasn't able to focus on a target because you got an Idris and Taka both dancing around the fight, just in and out, in and out. And Jewel, you know, you need to stick to a target and smash them a few times to get those kills, to get that burst damage out. And I don't think he could like find a target to actually get that damage down onto. We're into the draft for this one. It's going to be Catherine and Lyra taken off the board with Dynasty on the A side, locking in the Idris.
Lyra banned from Fnatic, just taking it away from Dynasty. It's just they don't want to deal with it.
Also very interesting to see that Dynasty go for the Idris before the Grace, and that means Grace does get banned out here now. So also the fact that Fnatic doesn't want the Grace themselves when they had the opportunity to take it with their either first or second pick. So interesting decisions being made here early in the draft. We'll see where this Glaive is going to end up. Fortress getting taken away by Dynasty. I think this might be our first Fortress ban.
Yeah, it's very surprising. This is not a very traditional draft, especially coming out of Europe. The idea though, Dynasty PT Lamb's been performing incredibly well throughout the series. Even the first game that they lost, he was doing great on Vox. So what they're saying is, we're just gonna give PT Lamb a great carry that he can do all that he can on, and that's why they first picked the CP Aegis.
Well, the Lance going to follow up alongside that Glaive, so a good amount of CC already locked in for Fnatic, and now to see how Dynasty want to round their composition out. Obviously, Celeste is open, Arden going to be locked in, along with a Taka, so very comfortable in this Taka pick for Rukumeza.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly warranted after their previous game. He played exceptionally well with it, but it's I think they're assuming that Fnatic wants to go for one of these, you know, really squishy but late game crystal mages, because that's what their composition is leaning towards, and Taka can do really well into that along with the Idris.
I would love to see Fnatic go for a Glaive lane right now and pick something in the jungle that is not squishy so that Taka doesn't have a target to go on. That would be very good. But for Dynasty, to their comp, Arden actually works a lot better with Idris and Taka when they're trying to dive in on a target than Lyra, because the Vanguard is going to be coming out, the Gauntlet is going to lock in all the targets that they will be in the team fight. Petal comes out. That's a great counter to Taka. So as long as they use their advantage again in the early game and mid game, try to apply a little bit of pressure, and late game just stick together, Fnatic actually has a better chance to win this game just because they have the Glaive lane.
The key here, though, is going to be that they have to shut down the Taka. It's one of the first times that we've seen a composition where, like, you need to focus your enemy's jungler. Usually we talk about, oh, you have to shut down the Celeste in the lane or something like that, but they need to prevent this Taka from having a massive impact, because in the late game, the Idris is going to be able to deal with those Petal Munions very quickly with the CP build. Yeah. So they need to shut down the Taka and make him a non-factor.
Yeah, it's all about making sure that you're using that Petal effectively in the early game. Honestly, Petal is something that we see we see it a lot in the bans. We don't actually get to see it picked up very often. This time it is going to be that final counter pick. Now we want to know who you think takes this series. Dynasty are making a run for it. It's one apiece right now. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know whether you're a Fnatic fan or whether you want Dynasty to go the whole way. But it's time to pass it over to our casters once again. It's Dowsy and the Source.
Who will be joining SK in Week 1's final matchup, Source? Another juicy matchup, and a Petal in now to counter the Tucker.
Yeah, and I was all excited for the Taka. I wanted to see Rukumeza pull out the spell sword. I know it's not going to happen. Doesn't seem to be the build that he's interested in. But now that Palmatoro is here on the Petal, a deep invade, and two men in the lane for Dynasty. They're going to lose out on the Triad, maybe even on the small camp towards the bottom. They'll definitely lose the Triad in the mid, and nice bit of early counter jungling coming out from Fnatic.
Not only that, you see Net2Let up in the lane, just holding back the minion wave so that TechnoJJ doesn't lose any of the CS to the turret. That means TechnoJJ is getting bonus experience and gold. We'll walk into lane, hit a couple of these minions, and will be level 2 before he knows it, which can allow for Fnatic to set up an early fight if they want to onto PT Lamb.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a little while before PTLM actually hits that level 2 spike, gets that additional mobility. Pizza's CP address, the chakram is there, so that is a bit of a vulnerability. And I'm actually a little excited to see how Palmatoro plays this Petal out, just because, you know, Petal can do significant amounts of damage. JJ will probably build some solid carry items, but we'll probably build into a little bit more defense, and maybe those Munions and spontaneous combustions will turn things in favor of Fnatic, because Dynasty really threw them for a loop last game.
Yeah, it really did, and Rikimeza on this. Tucker, a bit of an interesting one. It's definitely one of his pocket picks. Seen him play it very often in the VGL Challenger series back before he joined Dynasty in the Vainglory8, and it's just something that he can really take over the map with. If he gets going, if he gets strong, then he's able to be such a threatening force. But I guess the idea from Fnatic is that they're going to try and stomp on Rikumeza's carry ability by bringing in this Petal. Munion's going to reveal him whilst he's in stealth. He's not really going to be as sneaky as he wants to be, and with the Frostburn going to come through fairly surely for Palmatoro, also slows him down. Tucker's main strength is how speedy he is when he gets those auto attacks going.
Yeah, and this also shifts Dynasty's priority over to taking Palmatoro out. They're going to need to land a lot of that significant damage. Once the gauntlet comes out, you can definitely be sure to see that Palmatoro will be the main target for Mowgli to entrap. And, you know, based solely off of that, that gives Techno JJ a little bit of room to work. If they're not continuously cognizant of the amount of damage that Glaive can put out, they could get caught putting all their focus into Palmatoro.
Have to see how this one pans out. Once more Fnatic, just this rotation onto the front tree and securing it away, stealing away Rikumeza's farm here. Looks like Netalet has spotted out that Rikumeza's taking his front camp there, but nothing that he can do to actually stop it. Rikimeza, no! Walks in, gonna get stunned on up. He may be in trouble here. There's the root, and it's gonna be a first blood going over to Netalet.
Yeah, and meanwhile, with all of this farm coming in, all of this counter jungling going to those two members of Fnatic, Techno JJ has been alone in the lane, whereas PTLM and Mowgli have been there because they were assuming that ganks were going to come through, that they were going to be under pressure, and that they need to keep them alive. That leaves Techno JJ to, you know, get a little bit ahead in experience, a little bit ahead in gold, and gain some value out of just being able to push, because the members of Dynasty are so afraid to step up.
Bit of an issue for PTLM. Have to see if he decides to prioritize the Frostburn in this game, or if he'll go towards more of a Shadow Blast just so he can try and burst down the Petal in the late game, because I think that is where Dynasty are looking to play the late game. Oh dear, another root, another Impale comes through. Rikimeza are going to be threatened on down, but Fnatic spot out that Crystal Sentry and go, maybe not fighting over it, instead we'll just take it down. He's only just got to work, but he's going to be removed from the Halcyon Fold for the first time.
Sent home early from the mines, another root is going to land. Now they are behind them. Fnatic might be able to get the good flank. No, they will allow the members of Dynasty to walk away from that. Meanwhile, Rikimeza, making up for the lost farm, is going to be in the enemy side of the jungle for a little while. We'll get a couple more camps. Actually, the camps just spawned, so went there, they were gone, and now we'll find a nice surprise.
If you can get all of these camps away, of course, Palmatoro are going to just match the counter in the lane. Techno JJ pushing the wave in, which is putting PTLM under so much pressure. You can kind of see that the CS differences have started to come up. It's a 10 CS lead for Techno JJ in the lane, due to the fact that he's constantly pushing the minions under the turret, and it's just proving to be a little bit too difficult for PTLM to handle at this point.
Well, I think PTLM's just playing very, very cautiously. I mean, it might even say that it's more than cautious. It might just be fear. There's a fear that this huge gank is going to come in if they ever extend forward, because, you know, Palmatoro on a Petal has the Frostburn. That's so much slow. It's so difficult to get away from him. And, you know, you may have some mobility on Idris before you pick up... no, Idris actually has the Frostburn now. So the mobility is there for Idris, but you don't want to put yourself in, you know, a disadvantageous position, because the crowd control can come up from Fnatic and really lock down those kills. And once the Petal starts to get really, really far ahead, once the damage is there, they're going for the Crystal Sentry a second time.
Crystal Sentry
This is
defeated.
incredible aggression from Fnatic, constantly just taking it off. It's only just respawned as well within the last 20 seconds, and Fnatic going to remove it once more. It may even be gone from the map by 7.5 minutes. That would be an exciting start for Fnatic, possibly one of the quickest removals of the Crystal Sentry we've seen in Vainglory8 history.
Fnatic is moving like a well-oiled machine because right after they take that Crystal Sentry for the second time, the gank that Dynasty has been fearing, that PT Lamb has been playing so safe under Tower for, finally shows up, and they're instantly forced off of the wave. Now they're going to get a little, a little bit of a breather here. The wave will be pushed up. Palmatora is off in the jungle on his own farming, but now Techno JJ is back. The CC combo is there, so PT Lamb back under his turret, back to playing safe, and it's just going to be a continuous, just pushed up lane for Techno JJ, which is also giving Palmatora all of the space to maneuver throughout the jungle. Because the wave is so far up, and because his team can easily rotate through that side of the mustache brush, they're able to let Palmatora move through the jungle freely. They don't need to invest in that much vision, and this is going to result in them now getting a gold miner.
Incredible map rotations. Fnatic have just taken over this game. A 3,000 gold lead and only a single kill currently in Fnatic's pocket. They're just rotating at the moment and forcing Dynasty into really unfortunate scenarios. Rukameza, no control over his jungle. We talked about CS leads for Techno JJ. There's a
oh my god, they're doing it again.
Palmatora as well, and here they go. They're going for it again. This time, is there a minion candy? No, Oakley doesn't even have one. Oh, he does. He pops it down and he uses the gauntlet as well. You're not taking my Crystal Sentry, but now it's PT Lamb in trouble. Impale gonna connect. You get him more as well. Boom! Doesn't connect. Oh, they got him! The Shimmer Strike! Not well timed from PT Lamb, and the second spontaneous combustion gonna take him.
Oh, I thought he'd gotten away from that. I was like, okay, he'll walk away, he'll back. That's, solid pressure from Fnatic, but again, they managed to do it, and now right back to the Crystal Sentry. Like clockwork is the team from Fnatic. They show up to every single one of these objectives at a perfect timing, and manage to take that away. Now there are no defenses for the side of Dynasty in the jungle. They are going to be forced to retreat much, much further, which then allows Fnatic just to continue to play this stranglehold style. They have them pressured up in the lane. They now have complete clearance to run their way through the jungle. If they decide to chase out through some of these fights, it's a Petal with a Frostburn. Petals love to chase. They love to hunt you down. This is just everything is coming up aces for Fnatic.
I hope that Vainglory World Records had their stopwatches rolling. One of the quickest removal of the Crystal Sentry I've seen in competitive history. Dynasty, they're in trouble here, Source. They need to get PTM online. They need to get him towards that third CP item, but Fnatic are just putting so much pressure in the lane. Rukameza, with the Tension Bow, with the Aftershock, has burst available. He's not finding any opportunities to use it, and Palmatora is just taking away the jungle. There's no Crystal Sentry to dissuade him. He can continue to move on in and steal these backs. Rukameza not even contesting them at this point. Dynasty, they look lost in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, we glossed over that death by Rukameza off over in the Fnatic side of the jungle, but it's so inconsequential to the rest of the problems that Dynasty has to deal with. Yes, they lost somebody. They need to figure out how they're going to handle this insane amount of jungle pressure, this insane amount of lane pressure, these rotations coming out from Fnatic, and if that Impale had landed, it would have just probably spelled a little bit more disaster for the side of Dynasty, as Palmatora is pretty much online, has the Broken Myth, has the Frostburn, is going to be able to just destroy any defenses that the side of Dynasty build up, and now I think we may see a dab under this turn.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be good. Gauntlet comes down, it stuns up too. That's a lot of damage coming out from the side of Dynasty. The Fountain's going to keep everyone healthy. There's spontaneous combustions as well. And everyone from Fnatic are just going to walk away, hands free. Not even concerned by Dynasty's damage at this point. Techno JJ looking like he's going to be able to finish his third damage item in just a second. 10 minutes and 25 seconds, 3 damage items. The Tension Bow comes out. The gold lead at 5,000 for Fnatic, and looking for a kill onto Rukameza as well. Deleted once more from the fold. Hello Fnatic, looking to meet SK in these finals.
You want to learn how to rotate like a pro? Fnatic is putting on a master class in how to stranglehold pressure your opponent and to rotate through the jungle. And I put a lot of emphasis on how far they've been able to push up, but because of that, it's just facilitated Palmatoro to just have such an easy, smooth game. The decisions that they have to make are so straightforward, they don't have to worry. And here comes the engagement, but it's not going to do enough. They managed to get some damage on Techno JJ, but what does it matter?
Doesn't even mean anything for them at this point. This turret almost dead. One more auto attack from Techno JJ would secure it. They're just going to walk on in and impale it to death. Fnatic just going to piece on out. Incredible scenes here coming out of Fnatic. This is such calculated gameplay. And Dynasty, at this point, what have they got? Some gold onto PT Lamb, the alternating current and the frostburn, but that broken myth is sitting so far away, 1500 gold until he completes it, and he is so far behind. Usually the 12-minute mark is kind of the benchmark for getting that that broken myth for Idris. It's not going to happen for another 2-3 minutes at least, and Fnatic are free to take away gold miners, back rotations, anything they want.
Immense gold
and it's not
payout
even
collected.
a matter of survival for the side of Dynasty. They just don't have the damage to finish Techno JJ.
Techno JJ may be finished now. No, Mowgli gets cancelled out of his corner. That would have connected with Techno JJ, but to let such a god, PT Lamb struggling, is going to go down, but Riku able to take out Techno JJ, and it looks like he's just about able to get away from the side of Fnatic. May have spoken too soon. We'll have to see. Great Giphian wall comes through. Stealthed on up. A blind impale connects! You got net to let! And Riku Meza cannot escape. Palmatoro will take the kill. And his backs. Salt in the wound. A 7,000 goal lead for Fnatic.
Netzalet had a perfect reaction. The Munyon had just moved a little bit up into the bush, instantly turns around and throws out that impale, and things are just going so well here for Fnatic, and they've just done a good job of facilitating each member of their composition to do what needs to be done. I had spoken a little too soon. They did manage to bring down Techno JJ, but it was really, really close. And you also have to consider the fact that Palmatoro can still get more damage, that Techno JJ can still get harder to kill. There's still some space for the scaling to move up here for the side of Fnatic, and Netzalet is just waiting here for everybody to get a huge Giphian wall.
Oh, Mowgli is no way he can escape this. Just gonna drag Fnatic away from his carrion jungle, but that is all that he can do. Fnatic pushing this wave under the turret, looking like they want to take down this choke point. And I don't think Dynasty can stop them here. PT Lamb still no broken myth to be seen. Riku Meza, very little damage apart from that first on hit. And it's not enough to take down either Palmatoro or Techno JJ. More camps stolen away. Palmatoro 86 CS to the 55 of Riku Meza. 30 CS lead in the jungle is nothing to sniff at.
Yeah, and we're only 14 minutes into the game. Consider how early that Crystal Sentry went down, how much movement and free ability to get around the map that has allowed Fnatic to have. They have gotten Echo on Netzalet. That's how he landed that double Giphian wall to set up that kill onto Arden. Mowgli didn't have a lot of time to use any abilities. Didn't want to burn any cooldowns, which I guess is kind of fair. The death timer wasn't so long that he wouldn't be up and there couldn't be a possible fight. But there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for him to really get away from that. And now as we get later and later into the game, and where Arden, you know, that sustain out of the fountain, the crucible there, that becomes so important for those abilities to land from the side of Mowgli, you have to be worried that Netzalet is just going to land those double Giphian walls and just constantly be interrupting all of those abilities.
Finally, the broken myth is completed for PT Lamb. Is it too little too late is the question. Currently, Fnatic lurking in this Sentry bush, and Dynasty doing their best to sniff them out. They haven't found out yet. Now going to move on up, meet each other in the tri-bush. Here comes Fnatic, rushing on forward. PT Lamb goes into the fight and gets deleted immediately. Riku Meza, can the gauntlet save him is the question. Palmatoro dives on through, and Riku Meza is practically dead at this point. Netzalet to seal the deal with a Giphian war. Mowgli doing his best to escape this glaive, but an afterburn will knock him away from his base, and Mowgli going to die to the turret knowing he is dead to all rights. Dynasty maybe keeping Mowgli alive. Happy to do so, but at the moment it's Palmatoro taking down the Kraken and JJ shutting down the hopes and dreams.
This fight goes so fast. You see how much damage goes in onto PT Lamb. He's instantly blown up, and pretty much the fight is over at this point. Arden had the Fountain up. Mowgli could not use Fountain fast enough. The amount of damage that was put out onto PT Lamb. They managed to get Riku Meza. After that, the Kraken goes over to the side of Fnatic, and they should be able to close out this game 3 after being, you know, pretty much dominated in the last game. They didn't know how to handle Riku Meza on the Taka with the composition they had, but they had the pedal as an answer back. And it has just been an amazingly well-calculated game from the side of Fnatic, not a react.
Impale onto PT Lamb. Double Giffian War. PT Lamb trying to escape. Can he do so is the question. Yes. Yes, just about he can. Mowgli's Gauntlet's coming up in 6 seconds. Here comes the Kraken, but the first Vainglory Crystal turret gonna drop before it even reaches the base. This is the last hope for Dynasty, and the Gauntlet will fly out, but doesn't trap anything. PT Lamb trying to stack up his broken myth, trying to lay down the damage. The Chakram flying through, but he's stunned up and dead, and it's only Riku Meza, last man standing to keep the base alive. But Palmatoro swiftly deals with that threat. They shut down Dynasty. The Petal coming through as the last pick. Shut down Riku Meza's Taka, and Fnatic will be beating SK in the final.
For me, that game all comes down to the calculation of Fnatic's play. Despite all the great mechanical moments in those team fights, those rotations were perfect, they were beautifully executed, and Fnatic, I would be scared to meet them in the finals.
Going to be a great final indeed. SK versus Fnatic, looking forward to it. Let's see what our desk had to say about Fnatic's overwhelming win.
It was an overwhelming victory indeed in the end, but it was definitely a close series between these two teams. Game 1 was exceptionally close, then the next 2 games kind of going either way. My name is Munchables. I'm joined once again by Tasty Bacon and Iraqi Zoro. We're going to break that one down a little bit because that was Fnatic kind of showing a masterclass of how to control the map across this game.
Yeah, it really was a completely different play style from the last game we saw coming out of Fnatic. This time they played to their win condition. They were so aggressive in the early game. They just kept going on Taka, controlled the Crystal Sentries too, took gold mines, and tried to use the glaive to his rotation advantage. They just moved together as a unit. They played to their win condition and they did great.
Yeah, it was incredibly impressive. Again, we said that the Petal had to win early, had to shut down this Taka. That's exactly what they did. Riku Meza was a non-factor in game number 3 because Palmatoro was able to shut him down.
Now we have a replay of early on in this game. This is a beautiful example of Fnatic completely controlling where Dynasty have to go on the map. Iraqi Zoro, please talk me through these rotations.
Yeah, you can see how they're proactively making plays and forcing Dynasty to react. Once the Gauntlet was used and they were baited into thinking they were going to go for the Crystal Miner, they switch their focus, they go up, they gank the Idris, and they get a kill on him. And that's more and more advantages that they're getting and more pressure that they're earning. Another thing is, once they cleared out the Crystal Sentries, or at least got 2 kills on it, they were able to play even more aggressively in the jungle, going all the way to the backs, and Petal just took over the game over Taka.
Yeah, an unfortunate situation, that replay with the Idris jumping off of the target as the spontaneous combustion Munyon exploded. But, you know, that's sometimes just the way it works. Sometimes it's just not meant to be.
The control that Fnatic showed, though, basically Dynasty were just trying to catch up to Fnatic while they were rotating around the map. Now we have a fight that happened around the 15-minute mark where Fnatic really started to kind of vice-like grip on this game, kind of showing why they had this lead.
This was once they really felt like they had complete control, and they were just forcing the issue on these team fights. I mean, I do want to give credit to Dynasty. Like, they tried to make a couple of plays before they got to this point and had really fallen behind. Like, you know, in that first replay we saw that Gauntlet come out, it was an attempt at being a very aggressive play to try and come back. It looks a little bit silly in the, you know, seeing it after because obviously of how the result ended up being, but that was an attempt from Dynasty to try and just get back into the game. They felt the game slipping away from them and knew they had to do something, and unfortunately when that almost desperation attempt doesn't work, then you end up just falling even further behind.
Yeah, and to your point, Rico Meza was doing a great job early on trying to counter jungle whenever Fnatic invaded. And that's just a sign, as you said, of Dynasty trying to fight back. They didn't just let it over. But at the end, Fnatic did a great job of just playing as a